Sue me, but don't sue me. Thank you, Kay. It is awesome to be here. Hannah is my beloved. She adopted me, so I'm her mom. And I had her when I was 5. And I know how much she loves the church, the people in the church, and I know how much she appreciates the kind of interactions she has with you. So today, for a little over an hour, I'm going to taste what she enjoys day in and day out every day. So it is my privilege to be here. And thank you, Kay and Lemby, for really welcoming me. But we really met first on Zoom. And when they asked the questions, I said, this is the group I need to meet. Because the kind of questions and the attitude they have, I get stimulated. You know, I am 67 years old. Some of you are probably a little older than me, and some of you are much younger than me. However, I claim my age. Sometimes, people don't want to say their age, but I just met Jeannie, who claimed her age, and every day, if we have an attitude to be curious about the world, about people, and want to learn more and grow from it, I think we're on the right track. So if you are a lifelong learner, I hope you will get challenged today. I don't know where you're going to get challenged, but be curious about that challenge and want to find some answers, okay? So that's my motivation for you. You think we're on the right track? Yes. They painted a good picture of, the group will be like that. So this is really, I'm like a fish in the water, and this is really very comfortable for me. So let's go to the next frame, because we have to stay. I can just talk and talk and talk, and we'll be very happy. But these are the questions that they brought. Now read them carefully. I'm not going to read all of them. And at the end of my presentation, we're going to ask the same questions. I duplicated this frame. Think about some of the answers now. And see at the end, after our presentation, our discussion, whether you want to answer it differently than what you are thinking now. You don't have to reveal it, but after the second time we look at this frame, if you have different insight, I would love to hear about it. You're smart enough to figure out what I'm just asking you to do, right? Okay. All right. So these are 3 questions, and there are 2 more, right, Hannah?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you're going back and forth? Oh, 6. Yeah, 6 questions. All right. Do you need more time? Anybody need more time? Okay, good. Let's go to the next one. So I'm going to share an example of not so good example of the theme. How do we relate to our neighbor? And then I'm going to say a little bit about listening skills. Okay, so Center for Integrative Pastoral Practice, where I built the center based on a very good program we have in the United States. There are only 300 centers like our center, and most of these centers are located in the hospital. The center is for training pastors. So most of my students are pastors or pastor candidates. But United Methodist Church thought it's a very good program, and we would like to adapt it. So we had a visioning session, and they hired me to build this center in the General Board of Higher Education and Ministry of our United Methodist Church. That is the agency that oversees higher education of our denomination. Over 100 universities and 13 seminaries just in the United States, and we're exploring what's out there in the outside the United States where United Methodist churches are growing. And the ministry part is the ordination of pastors, preparing the pastors, examining them, and ordaining and certifying. So that's our agency deals with it, and that agency thought this is a very good program. Hannah did it. So first unit, only 400 hours. But it sort of gives openness about. So my presentation comes from teaching those programs, okay? Teaching pastors how to provide pastor care more effectively. So there's a little bit of teaching, listening skills we're gonna touch base. But pastor care is not just about skills, because this is one of the examples I use. Doctors use knives to bring healing when they do surgeries, right? So scalpels. Pastors use themselves. They're trusting God, their faith in God, and their understanding of human beings. Doctors make sure the instrument is sharp and clean. How much do pastors know about their instrument themselves? So learning about human beings. We're going to do a little bit about that. And then there is a little video that I'm going to show you and have you discuss in groups. Is that a good plan for about an hour? We'll have to go very quickly, and we might not have all the answers, but if you are stimulated and curious, you can call me back. I'll probably have to come back or ask Hannah. She will give you a good direction from there. Okay, let's go to the next one. So it was 1986. I was a young mom. My son was 6 years old. My daughter was 2. We moved to Northern California, called a little city called Dublin. They were just building the town. And we needed to find a church. And it was during the time I didn't know what Methodists were, whether they're different from Presbyterians or Catholics. That's how ignorant I was. So we looked for churches and found one not too far from where we were living. And we visited, 2 little kids and my husband and I. After the service, it wasn't very impressive, but it's close enough. We may be able to come and worship there. And this lady came, and I don't know what we talked, but at the end of our conversation, this is what she said. There is another church down the street. The Koreans meet. You will be more comfortable there. Okay, now, you have very, very, very emotional reaction. Okay, so let's go to the next frame. What would you feel if you were given this comment on the first day you visited a church? They don't want me? That's the impression you have? Ron? I'm not coming back. Okay, what else?
They don't want me. This church doesn't want me.
Right, they don't want this church, that church didn't want me. Okay, yes?
It was a certain race of people there, and you wouldn't fit in.
Okay, so, yeah, I was certain race, not my race.
Right.
And probably that person saw that
Right.
and thought I didn't belong there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I wasn't quite impressed about the church, but I was willing to come and try.
Right.
Okay, that's what immigrants are for. I mean, we just want to try everything the United States of America offers, right? So there was a hand over here. Yes?
We didn't understand what you were looking for in a church.
Helen, they did not understand what I was looking for, what we were looking for at the church. So, what was the assumption behind this comment?
That you would want to find people who are like you.
Okay.
Like assuming you are.
Yes. Her assumption was somehow I was colorblind when I walked into that church. I didn't know what race they were. And that person thought that she knew what I was looking for. Yeah. Okay. What other assumptions? Roger, you've been very, very attentive about the conversation. Did you want to say something?
I don't have anything to say, but my wife probably might.
Okay, Lois, you have the baton.
I was going to say, I think from thinking that the church member wanted her to feel comfortable.
Did you hear that? The church member was uncomfortable about my presence when wanted to feel comfortable, and she would feel more comfortable if I didn't show up. That sounds a little far-fetched, but it's sort of there's that truth in it, right? So yes, and then here, and then we'll go over here.
Maybe she saw you like you were not very thrilled. When she saw you, maybe you were not really thrilled to be there. That's why. Hey, can I help you, or is I'm really not good enough? So that's why. I don't know the situation, but that's how she reacted.
Okay.
That maybe you will be more comfortable if you go
Uh-huh.
there, because maybe your situation or your facial or whatever she saw in there was not very pleasing.
So she was. Is it Raquel?
Yeah.
Raquel is going a little farther. She thought maybe my body language sort of expressed something about me not liking fully the church.
Yeah.
And she was trying to help me to satisfy or resolve whatever the communication I was bringing. Very, very good point. Yeah, very good point. But let's hold that thought here for a little while, and we'll go to Margie.
It's the same. She might have been trying to help you. And by the way, there's a Korean church,
Yeah,
down there,
she
not realizing.
yes, and I wanted to give that that what do you call it? The doubt that yes, I think her intention. What was?
Benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, benefit of doubt. That's the expression. That I wanted to give her some credit. That she wanted to help me somehow to find something better without asking me what I wanted.
Yeah.
Yes. There was a hand here too. Yes.
It still sounds like projection.
Projection.
That basically, I'm not really sure that you belong here, and I project on you that you feel that way.
Okay. He already have used the word that I wanted to teach later on, projection. It's a Jungian word, and my theorist is Carl Jung. Projection is like, this is projection. The real thing is way over there. So it's something that I am thinking, and often I project it on somebody else, and thinks that person is thinking or feeling what I am going through right now. So projection is something we really need to watch out. Okay, those of you who have children who sort of have similar gene or same gene as you have, but it's the side of you that you really, really don't like. And your son or your daughter are exhibiting that trait that you really want to hate about yourself, you want to hide away. So when that happens, what do? You scold, you say, that's bad, you change it. It's not about her or him. It's about you and how you feel about that. That's the projection. Yes.
She may have also felt like she didn't know how to communicate with you, and it was threatening to her and a challenge, and it would be easier if she didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah, she would. It'll be easier. So she was probably. I want to give her good. She had a good intention, but she was uncomfortable having me around there, and that's sort of the bottom line. And this is exactly what the committee wanted. The neighbor who are very different from me. Okay, so how do we deal with those people that make us uncomfortable and want to get rid of them? No, not really. Want to get to know them, but you don't know how to get to know them. That was the intention, right? Okay, so good. Any other thought about this before we go to the third question? What are some other ways to carry on the conversation in the similar situation? And this is something we will be thinking about. Okay, so if this happened, now we learned something about projection, and when this person makes me feel uncomfortable, how do I deal with my own uncomfortableness? But be curious about why this person is here. Okay, so it's a lifelong journey. There will be a project that we will constantly think about if you want to grow. If you want to build a wall around you and sort of hide inside and only think about my glorious days in the year 1965 or something like that, then you don't need this class. But if you want to get out of whatever it was that sort of protected you guys and made you comfortable, if you want to sort of have an adventurous spirit, I think you have something to gain from today. Okay, let's go to the next one. What do we have? Oh, some of the examples. So how did Jesus start conversation? Do you know the story about the walk to Emmaus? Many times you probably read it and heard the sermon. How did Jesus first start the conversation? Do you know what he said first? Okay, let's go to the next frame and see if it shows. Two things. This is what he said. What are you discussing with each other while you walk along? Well, he knew who these two people were, and he sought them out. He knew probably what they were already talking about. But what did he say? What are you talking about? That was more than trying to find the facts. And then one of them said, "Are you the only stranger in Jerusalem who does not know the things that have taken place there in these days?" Well, he was the main character of that event. Okay, and he said, "What things?" I usually start with this Bible study with my students, and it takes about 2.5 hours to go through the whole verse by verse, how Jesus provided care. But I'm just giving you a little taste of what did Jesus do? He had all the answers, but what did he do? Somebody's answer for me. What did he do? He asked the question. Yes, Kay. It was open-ended question. Yes, you already have all the answers now, so I can quit here. But so yes, he had open-ended question. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Another example. What do you want me to do for you? Why do you think he asked those kind of questions? Of course, when the blind man came and called Jesus, we could assume what the blind man wanted. But he did not assume, even though he's God and he knew what would be good for this blind man. What did he say? He asked the open-ended question. What are the open-ended questions? It starts with, yes, Davis.
Something that's not a yes/no answer.
Something that's more than yes, no. So rather than saying, do you want this or whatever, we ask with how 6, 8 W's and 1 H or something like that. Okay. Yes, Kay.
What, when, where, and how?
Yes. What, when, where, how, why?
And I think you just
Bruce.
be attuned to their feelings too, and why they were sad, not just
Uh-huh.
the knowledge of it, what happened.
Yes.
I thought that probably touched them in a certain way.
Awesome, awesome. Did you hear what David said? Bruce said? Not just about what they understood, but Jesus wanted to hear what they were feeling. Okay, so this is called head and heart. Head and heart is about a foot, but it's the longest foot there is. Okay, so actually, the center name of our center that we named it, Center for Integrative Pastoral Practice, integration. The integration is integrating the head and the heart. Because we often use our head and ignore our heart. Okay, so integration, yes. Jesus was the perfect psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist who knew exactly what questions to ask and how to invite someone to express. Not only answer what they know, but also express what they feel. Okay, let's go to the next one. So good conversation starts. How we already answered these questions. How to show interest in the person, and we try to have open-ended questions. But now I want to focus on the negative questions. So when we try to show interest, we try to ask questions. Okay, but not invasive enough. And we want to do open-ended questions, but there are some questions that are not very well intended. What are 3 different ways that we use questions negatively? Let's go to the next one. Okay. Sometimes we ask questions because the person who's listening have triggered whatever it was going on triggers something, and this person want to avoid. And in that example that we shared in the beginning, some of you have already answered. Maybe she was uncomfortable about my being there, so she suggested something. And when we are listening, and if the theme is going to an area where I feel very uncomfortable, I may change. Yeah, change the subject. Very subtly sometimes, if you are a very skillful conversationist. But nevertheless, we don't want to hear about your needs or what you're thinking. I want to change it because it makes me feel uncomfortable. Okay? Sometimes we ask questions before we really build the trust level. And when the trust level is not there, we cannot really, share honestly about what's going on. So sometimes asking some questions can make someone uncomfortable. Then sometimes there are loaded questions. Okay, what are the loaded questions? It's usually an accusation disguised in the pretext of a question. So do you think you are a good mother? Ouch, huh? Yeah. Why do we do this? To protect ourselves, yes. There's something called vulnerability. Are you willing to be vulnerable when you are meeting a neighbor that is very different from you? Okay. Vulnerability can go in many different ways. What are some ways you can describe? Get some. So if you really, really, really want to get to know your neighbor, the first question you need to ask is, how vulnerable can you be? Or what kind of control do you still want to have? Okay, so let's keep that in mind, and we're going to go over very quickly, because I want to give you some time to really watch the really fun YouTube video. And so we say these are the primary communication modes. The words only speak 7%, and 38% are in the tone of our voice, or maybe even volume of our voice, and 55% is a body language. So when Raquel wondered whether I exhibited some body language that I was not comfortable in that church, and maybe she picked it up, that's a good assumption, good, I guess, curiosity and about that. So sometimes we say a word, and we choose the words carefully, but the tone of our voice sort of defeats us. Okay, and sometimes our body language defeats us. So when you are especially talking with a stranger, sort of check yourself. See, am I speaking too loud and I wonder? I want to show a lot of too much excitement or what? And what does my body language say? What is my hand saying? What is my, am I leaning in or leaning out, or I'm doing this? So it's a good tool to be aware of. And here, think about also people who do not speak English as the first language. They have to translate in their head. So the 7% is probably less than 7% for some of us. Okay? So we are only communicating with some words, maybe 4%. Yes?
I once dated a guy who kept holding my hands, and I thought that was very romantic until I realized that he didn't like the fact that I moved my hands when I talked.
Now, who was this person? Who was this person who was holding your hand so gingerly? I'm going to pick up a napkin or Kleenex. Yeah. Sometimes because it makes the person uncomfortable, you have to restrain. Okay. Yeah. Just to keep in mind, okay? Check your body language and your expression. Let's go to, so this is also like another lecture that we usually do for about at least an hour and a half, neuro-linguistic bridge. We all have our preferences. We are born with it. I am very visual. So after I learned this, I checked myself, and I will talk and I'll say, I see that. So I use the visual verb a lot. Even when I'm talking on the phone, somebody says something and I'll say, I see that. And say, oh, I'm visual. Some people say, I hear you. Okay, that's probably auditory. Okay, kinesthetic are people, I just feel bad. Oh, it's a lot of feeling words. And smell. It smells fishy, or something like that. So check yourself, and once, when I was studying this subject matter, there was an example about a teenager who was having a hard time at school. The person who wrote this book, his name is John Savage. He visited because the parents just couldn't figure out why their daughter was having trouble at school. But she's smart. Why is she having trouble? And after having the parents and the daughter for about an hour of conversation, he figured it out. The parents are both auditory people. And the daughter is a visual person. So every time the parent asks her to do something, they will give the auditory command. And the daughter, it sort of passes over her head. So she was having a hard time with this school project, and Dr. John Savage said, okay, so show me what you want to do. And that sort of freed her. She was able to show. She could not verbalize it, but show. That was a learning moment. So think about, just in casual conversations, what kind of verbs do you use the most? And the person who's relating with you, and see if you know what kind of verbs that person uses. Okay? Just a little clue here and there. Okay. So this is how I see a person. If you told me to draw a person, I will draw an iceberg. So in Carl Jung's theory, over the water is our conscious level. This is all we know about, all the knowledge, all the emotions, and all of those. Under the water, much, much bigger portion than what's above the water is our unconscious. Something that we sort of pushes down for whatever reason, even from the moment that we were born, and as our caretaker take care of us, we sort of choose what to put in our head or in our awareness and what to press down. Okay, so let's go to the next one. This is what Freud sort of named. So on the top, over the water is conscious level, perceptions and thoughts. And sort of in the middle, pre-conscious level, memories and stored knowledges. And sometimes they go up to our awareness, and they go down, or sometimes we push it down if it's too painful. Okay? Unconscious level, usually for Freud, have these kind of themes. There are selfish needs, and especially if you grew up in a good Christian home, you shouldn't be selfish. So whatever selfish needs, you press it down and pretend it's not there. Or immoral urges. Okay, and I just want to remind you, spirituality and morality are not the same. But we often confuse that God wants a moral people. But morality is more societal. It's not our natural sort of instinct. We were shaped because the society needs some more morality. I'm not saying it's bad or good, but what I'm saying is the categories are different. Irrational wishes. Our family cannot afford it, but you still wish you could have the new pair of shoes. Irrational wishes. Shameful experience. And who decide what is shameful and what is not? Okay, so a lot of shaping happens here. Okay, unacceptable desires. There are fears, and especially, you are a boy, you should be strong. And you should be brave. Violent motives. Oh, I just want to wring his neck. But you'd better not think that way. Unacceptable, so all of these. A lot of unacceptable things, especially we push it down. But also, this in the unconscious level are creative energies. So you see those crazy people who are like Van Gogh, who paints awesome paintings. But, you know, the society was not very favorable for him. Okay. So anyway, we push a lot of things down into our unconsciousness, whether we choose to or not. That's the way we protect ourselves. We defend ourselves. That's how we survived when we were 1 year old. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So now, two strangers met. So they want to communicate over the water. And I purposefully chose different hues. One's a little bluer, one's a little greener. Okay, what happens? What happens underneath? It crashes, yes. Whether we recognize it or not, it crashes. Before we even get closer on the top, there's something crashing. Okay, so it's very visual, because I'm visual. So what are you getting now? To be able to really, really, really relate to the neighbor that is very different from you, you need to figure out what you have pushed underneath the unconscious level. It can be painful. It can be very, very messy. But once we start doing it, it also can free us. Yes.
Could you just find commonalities?
Yes, there will be commonalities. And oftentimes the commonalities is on the surface level. And if you want to stay there, that's fine. And yeah, it's getting there. That's a first step. That is a good first step. Okay? But so that's a very good first step. I'm not minimizing it, and you probably are very good at that. What I mean by that is you are uneducated, socially adept, morally righteous, and Christian loving person like Christ, and you want to do that. But that you can relate on some level. And if that is fine, you stay there, that's okay, because nobody is going to blame you. And nobody is going to say you did bad. You did good enough. And if you want to go more than that, this is what I'm challenging you. Okay, for example, the program that I described to you, clinical pastoral education, that I was taking this class in a hospital, and my group was made up of, it was a Catholic hospital, so some young men who wanted to be a priest, a couple of them, and then a couple of people who were sisters, and there was one Episcopalian priest, and myself. From the first day, I did not like the Episcopalian priest. Every time, he was about 60 years old. It was 2000, the year 2000, so I was in my 40s, early 40s. He was probably little, over, mid-60s. He was almost ready to retire, and he realized his ministry all those years was not very productive, and he wanted to learn a new skill. That's why he came to this class. I was a pastor of a church. I was doing a lot of good work, and I was just spreading my wings. I was full of hopes and dreams, ambition too. But this person bothered me. And not only where he was in his life and his, I'm a failure kind of attitude, but every time he talked to me, he wanted to talk about Korean War. Okay, now, those of you who had a reaction, what is your reaction? May I ask?
He was in the Korean
Oh,
War.
he was in the Korean War. Okay. Wow. You must have been very young, like 3 years old.
I I'm 92 right now.
Gosh, you don't have any wrinkle. How did you do that? So,
She's a good character.
good. So Korean War happened in 1950 and lasted for 3 years. I was born in 1956, just 3 years after the war ended. So we were still building the country when I was growing up. I didn't have a doll because they didn't have, they could not produce dolls because they were busy building buildings. Okay. And it was very poor country. We were broken and we were really miserable. Though the end of the war was not a victory, it's still going on, division. And a lot of people around us lost family. So Korean War is not a very favorable experience for me. Okay, but he wants to bring up Korean War every time we talked. And another assumption or prejudice I had, and this is my own prejudice, I'm confessing you, at the time when I was in 2000, I thought those, I'm not talking about Roger, he was not. But I thought those people who were in Korea to help us related to Korean women in certain ways, service women, right? I didn't want to be put in that same category. So every time he related to me and talked to me about Korean War, my assumption was he's treating me like one of them. I didn't want to be treated. I had a master's degree ordination. I was working for my doctoral degree at the time. I worked very hard. I was successful. I didn't want to be in the same category. That was my assumption. So every time he talked, I got angrier and angrier. Finally, my educator said, "You better talk to him." I said, "Do I really want to talk to him when I don't want to be near him?" So we sat down and talked. And I figured, I don't know what he found out. I don't care. What I figured out was he wanted to talk to me about Korean War because he was 19, young, vibrant, lots of energy, with lots of hope, and was there to help a country with good intentions. And he missed that period of his life. Now on the other side of the life, he wished he were there. When I learned about that, I started to understand him better. But it took me a lot of painful patience to listen to him. And also, still, I didn't want to have him, I didn't want him to have the kind of memory of Korea frozen in 1950s. And I don't think he wanted to learn about the new, the more developed Korea. That's why, he was where he was, feeling feeling like a failure, because he didn't want to stretch out. Anyway, so at the end of the class, I really went out and bought the newest picture book of Korea now, with lots of good sort of development, buildings and all that, and I gave it to him. And I said, "This is Korea now." There were some changes in those 50 years. We worked hard, but I want you to know this Korea. I don't know whether he paid attention or not. I wish I could take him to Korea and show them. And I wish I could show, all the things that now you know more about. So anyway, what did you hear when I shared this example from my life? Pain? Mm-hmm. People crashing Okay, so what did I do? I tried to figure out what's bothering me. And I also figured out I have prejudice. And I needed to open up myself. Okay, so since then, I started appreciating whatever it was that people tried to do, even though it was little, what's the word? Shame, maybe, or humiliation, that we needed help. That was the reality at the time, and I needed to accept that reality. Instead of the shameful sort of situation I needed to accept. Okay? So I was able to do some of the, figure out where my unconscious, what I was hiding in my unconscious level, and work through that. And because of that, probably we got a little closer. I don't know what he did. It's not my responsibility for whether our conversation brought any new awareness for him or not. So this is where now I'm challenging you. We cannot change the other person. How much are you willing to work on your own prejudice, to your own shameful assumptions that you push down? And what do you want to do about that? Whew. That's the challenge that I am giving you. Not because I'm putting, not because whatever that I'm thinking about you. What I'm saying is, and hear me clearly, what I'm saying is, we all have prejudices. We all have assumptions. It's checking on those and see whether you want to open up a little and integrate that into your conscious level and bring it into your thought and do something about it. And I tell you, it's a very liberating exercise. It's like, whew, I don't have to hide this. I don't have to hide this part. In the beginning of my training as an educator, you know what my trainer told me? You're like a swan. You glide gracefully, but I know underneath you're paddling like hell. Can you at least acknowledge you're paddling like hell? Can you at least share? Oh my God, so actually that was the exercise for me. Because I'm, smart enough to figure out all the theories. But how do I apply it to me? So I am sharing with you once I started integrating, once I started sharing, I am so whatever ashamed now, or I'm very humiliated, so bear with me now. Whatever I can verbalize, then it's so liberating from there on. So once you meet somebody, so now this Asian woman walked into your church. A lot of things are going on. How are you going to be curious about this person? What kind of questions that you are going to invite the person with? Or what kind of comment are you going to make so that you can... The first time I met Jeannie, what caught me was the hat. Yeah, and I just love all that expressions of, So we started a conversation about the hat. I'm curious. And then she shared, oh, you are a world traveler. Now I get to know her a little. And then she shared with me about, the fall. I mean, I'm a stranger to her. Why is she talking about her fall? Because it is very, very traumatic for her, probably, and still dealing with the remnant of. So now she became one of my best friends. Because I want to go where she goes to shop for hats. So do you see how instantly we were able to engage? And that's now can I see your name there?
Bonnie.
Kwani? Bonnie, I'm sorry. It's a B, not a Q. Okay, Bonnie, I'm visual. So yeah, I was hearing, but still was need to see. So it's a very good beginning. And maybe next time we'll sit over a coffee and I'll get my Diet Coke. She can get her black coffee because now I figured out she likes coffee black. And we'll sit down and maybe have a little more conversation. So it doesn't happen right away, but at least you engage. Instead of, you will be more comfortable. How do you know what I will be comfortable with? Okay? So 11:30 now. Should we just wrap up instead of, I don't think we have time to discuss all this and have question and answer questions. So we'll just do it in this. Yeah. Because I thought maybe we will divide into groups and have you talk about it and then come back and report. So what do you feel about the video? How do you feel about the video? What did you notice? How are the birds similar to human beings or different? Which one do you identify with the most? Okay. Maybe pick one question and you can, it's probably good to sort of write it. You don't have to share with everybody. My original plan was to have everyone talk about it and share, but I want you to be more reflective now and think about these questions. And maybe write down for yourself. Give you like 2 more minutes, and then I'm going to focus on maybe in this big group, talk about how are these birds similar or different from us now. So what did you pick up from this little video with the interactions of the birds? And how are they similar or different from us? I think Steve wanted to talk about this.
I thought they behaved the same way, both kinds of birds. They look different, but they behave the same way.
Oh, they look different, but they behave the same way. How?
Well, they each laughed at the other.
They each laughed at the other.
they didn't seem to learn anything.
Uh-huh.
And the only difference between the taller bird and the smaller ones was just their appearance.
Huh. Say a little more about what you mean.
Okay, they didn't behave very well. And they weren't forward-looking, and they didn't have any empathy.
Uh-huh.
And at one point, each kind of bird laughed at the other.
Yes, Mary.
My experiences in the animal kingdom, like is like, right?
Like
sticks was
like sticks with like.
Right. Where in human beings, we have a tendency to be more inclusive. Some of us
Some of
have
us.
a tendency to be more inclusive.
Yeah.
So I think in that situation, the birds probably acted like they usually do, right? Because a giraffe will not hang out with a rhinoceros, right? It's rhinoceros and giraffe and giraffe. And I think it's the same thing for birds. You'll see that.
Yeah.
Crows chasing a hawk.
Uh-huh.
Right. So I think similar, yeah, at some level. But animal kingdom and humans, I think the behaviors are different.
Yeah, yeah. So there is a little more, we want to give a little more credit to human beings. There is a little more, we at least think.
Right.
When animals sort of behave from instinct.
Right.
Huh? Okay, so we're going to go to Raquel and then come to you. And then,
I see the birds. I was here first, and everybody say thing, and then they try to argue with each other, and when the other bird came, and there's chaos. They're all fighting there, and then when the big one came, they start to communicate. At least the two birds try to communicate.
when the different birds, big birds showed up, the other ones starting to communicate with each other.
Yeah. And
It's
try to.
very insightful. They're all the same. Yeah, they're all the same, whether they're big or small. Ralph.
Well, I thought that basically that we're different a little bit in that I think that there's a lot more individualism among the humans. But basically, the flock of birds were upset with each other because you're crowding me. I was here first, and so we had that. But then they quickly ganged up on the different. And I thought that was very similar to us.
Did you hear something little different when Ralph said? So when the little birds were together, there were some challenges too and struggles. But when the different one showed up, that the big bird became the target. Yeah, the target. So then their differences are sort of set aside now, or their uncomfortableness among themselves set aside, and now they're focusing on the secondary difference. That's a very insightful perception. Ralph, what do you do in the church?
Come and listen.
You come and listen. I think we should listen to Ralph better, more. Anybody else here? There were a lot of hands. Kay.
I was gonna say the same thing that Ralph said.
Oh, you were going to say the same thing. Sorry, I should have given you the first opportunity. Now listen to her. Okay, Kay.
Well, I agree with what, especially what Ralph was saying. But beyond that, after the bird the other bird just impaled himself into the midst of them, they're even more outraged. And that's very human-like. But beyond that, then they're trying to get rid of the other. And they finally succeed, but only end up making a mess out of themselves.
Yeah. That big bird showing up crowded them even more, scrunched them to an uncomfortable position. Yeah. Good insight, Kay. Anybody else here? Yes, Bonnie.
Say, but when the big bird was on the ground, he was not very gracious.
Oh, what do you mean?
He was laughing at them that he had gotten them. Vindictive.
Vindictive. Okay. See, you try to get rid of me, now look at yourself. You deserve that, huh? The kind of attitude. Okay. So, yes.
And I just saw, it just reminded me of human beings during COVID. When the little birds all got on the, don't get close to me, move over. I was that same way. And still, get back. You know, I don't want COVID. I was at the hospital and the doctor said, well, Marjorie, I'm going to release you in a few minutes. I said, let me get out of here. It's too much COVID in here. He started laughing so loud. I said, could I go to the emergency room and just wait for my ride? He said, go ahead. Please. I just get back.
Yeah. Well, it was scary. I mean,
Yeah,
COVID really scared us.
And it reminded me of us as human beings.
Yes.
'Cause I was acting like those birds.
Yeah, when we are in an threatening situation, we want to be,
Absolutely.
yeah.
With one little tongue left, one of the birds realized what was going to happen next and tried to stop everybody. It was too late.
Oh, she noticed something. There was someone, at least one bird noticed, oh my God, we're going to be in big trouble. But nobody listened. Oh, wow. So there's a small voice that sometimes get ignored.
And I wanted to say one point further than what Kay has mentioned. When they were trying to attack this big bird, it's not just getting them losing all the feather on themselves. When you're trying to attack someone, you reveal your vulnerability.
Oh, yeah. It was gonna happen anyway. Vulnerability will come out anyway. Why don't you do it yourself? Good point. Okay, so were you?
Yep.
Okay, Laurie.
So I asked myself whether or not the big bird planned it all along.
Oh.
And, so like human beings, do we have intention? And then do we foresee what the outcome is going to be? And that was actually a plan.
Oh, gosh. Then the big bird must be really, really smart. Plan ahead. Intentions versus impact. Good point. You wonder about that, huh? I think it's something to wonder about. Good. Anybody else burning to? Yes. Claire.
Well, I think having the migrants here has been enlightening in the sense that, like you say, some of them don't understand English, some of them do. But just learning to relate to them and like these could be the same people that, we've said, oh, what are they doing here? We don't want them. But then, when you see them in person and if you know, and I don't begin to know, but have a little bit of an idea, like I was here yesterday and I was talking to a gentleman who's from Nigeria, so he speaks English, and he went to Brazil, Bolivia, Ecuador, Peru, Mexico, and, I can only imagine the, horrific things that he went through, and it just makes you, I think, at least for me, makes you realize that, it really brings home the yes, we all are brothers and sisters in Christ, and we as Christians, this is what we are called upon to do, is to reach out and show love to people who are different from us.
Yeah, yeah. Claire has a lot of things to share about, especially what's going on here on campus. I think that it's a big challenge. It's a big challenge, but also it can be a good learning opportunity for us. Yes. Okay, Marge.
I just wanted to comment, we need to call them asylum seekers.
Asylum
because,
seekers.
Migrants say they just want to get to better,
Uh-huh.
where many of them have had
Yes.
horrific experiences.
Yes, yes.
And they wouldn't be in the company unless they had an asylum.
Right. Good point, good point. So let's go to the last frame. And then, so I'm going to pause the original questions the committee brought. Okay. About an hour ago, we started with this, a little over an hour now. Where are you now? How would you answer these questions? What change? What differences are you feeling or gained now, and why? That's your sort of learning points. And I'll leave that there, and maybe, I don't know whether do we have time to talk about it, or I can just leave it here and address some questions we may have. Okay, I'll give it to you.
Okay, so if you have questions, please write them on the cards and just raise them up, and I'll come and get them and read them out with the mic. Also, I wanted to say, I saw this cartoon the other day in the paper, and it was just wonderful. It was, the family circus cartoon with all the little kids and everything, and the one little girl was going around just hugging everybody. And in the last frame, she says, "We're the only arms that God has to hug people with." And I thought, that's good theology.
Okay.
Okay, so anybody else have any questions? And I also want to just remind you to please fill out the evaluation form. We really look at those carefully, and it means a lot to us to have your feedback. Okay, so how does one deal with a person such as when they say, "I don't want to talk about that"?
I don't want to talk about that. And if this is the person you've met first on the grocery store, in the grocery store, then sure, you don't want to talk about that. If this is person that you really love and care about, one of the first things I would say is, I respect that, but I'm here when you're ready. I did that with my daughter when we were going through a very tough time, and she didn't want to talk about it. And she was in Philadelphia. I said, I understand, but when you want to talk about it, I can deal with whatever it is that you need to talk about it. Let me know, and I'll fly out. It took about 3-4 months. But she did say, Mom, I'm ready. So I flew out. Didn't matter how much I needed to pay for that airline ticket. I did fly out, and I heard what she needed to say. And then, we shared stories and cried together and laughed together. And for 3 days and nights, we talked. Okay, so it really depends on the situation and who it is. But I think the first attitude is respect that boundary this person wants to set, and we'll go from there. But respecting the boundary doesn't mean you're not interested. You just say, I'm here when you're ready.
This person asks, how do you know when you have a trusting relationship as you first meet? So basically, how do you measure the trust in the relationship?
It's sometimes 1 step forward and 2 steps back. you sort of think I think I've sort of built a relationship with Jeannie. I don't know. But we found something common. I love hats and I love the colors. And I found out she's a nurse practitioner and in OBGYN. My husband is OBGYN. So we found something common. Okay? That's the level. If I try to go too close and I don't know, I didn't even ask her that I'm revealing this to you and making it public. I don't know how she feels about it. Maybe after this she doesn't want to talk to me, and that's okay. And I will have to respect it. I need to apologize. Sorry, I didn't really plan on it, but you know, sort of it's a very good example, but I put you on the spot and I'm sorry. And maybe then she's okay about that, and maybe we'll go to the next level. So it's all sometimes in my eagerness, I want to go too far or too close, and then maybe I need to step back. Okay? She's smiling. Okay, any other questions?
Anybody have any more questions?
Okay, over there.
Oh, okay, okay, so I have a thing here. I met my husband in Korea, so I'm fixed on that happy time, 62 to 63. And it opened my eyes that you shared your reflection, your reaction. Thanks for sharing. We would not recognize other Korea as it is today. We would not recognize the other Korea as it is today.
Yeah. Thank you. Wow. Were you in Peace Corps? What are you doing in Korea?
No. My husband was in the Army, and I went over there just for a year because it was a year providing recreation on the bases. I mean, it was ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, and I thought it's time to give back. It turned out to be a very happy time.
Awesome. John F. Kennedy, huh? It was the engagement. Yes, Steve. Okay, you want to? Yeah, Lambie.
If you could read it.
Do you avoid small talk and also avoid personal or intense topics and look for something in the middle to talk about?
That's,
so what is the middle?
Middle. What is the middle?
Well, you have that spectrum of trivial stuff, you know, small talk versus politics and religion, and very personal stuff on the other end of the spectrum. So you look, I gather you're looking for something that's common, and they actually want to share, like their hat. They like to, for their clothes or their hats, be noticed, and then there's the more public things like what their profession was. So if I'm perplexed by how to start conversations, so I'm just looking for advice.
Yeah, that's a good. So if you are sitting in the airplane and you have 5 hours to sit with this stranger, if you want to engage a conversation, it's up to you. But sometimes, often, it's like they sort of figured out what I do, and they start sharing their life stories. Okay, so if I don't want to do that, I will just pretend I'm reading or falling asleep. But what Steve is saying, how do I figure out, where to begin? Do I just stay in the chatty chat, or do I go a little deeper? It's really up to you whether you want to engage or whether the other person wants to engage also. For example, one of the good things is, I was wearing a necklace, and my colleague said, "So what is the story behind that necklace?" My colleague, I have known him for a couple of years now, but we don't see each other very often. We email each other and share. But then when he started asking about a piece of the jewelry I have, I was ready to share something personal. But I stayed where I wanted to stay, and he respected that. But we got a little closer. He knows that now my son gave me this, whatever, and then I share a little bit about my son. So yeah, so we start from chitty chat, and then we can go into conversation, or we can go into care. We can even go into communion. So that is the deepest conversation. Communion with God and communion with each other. So some of us are introverts. A lot of us are introverts. It's hard to start a question. But if we have openness, and I'm an introvert whether you know it or not, if you only saw me for an hour, you think I'm an extrovert, but I'm an introvert. After this, I'll be very quiet. So if you're an introvert, at least, people figure it out. And then once they figure out you are a gentleman, you are soft and you are gentle and you care about the person, then they engage you. Sometimes it's hard for introvert to start a public or social conversation, okay? But even when we are quiet, this is where now prayer comes. God, use me, whatever you need. And if this person, and then as an introvert, I just sit and sort of observe, and something clicks. And you can probably, approach the person later or say, I noticed you were doing this. Is there something I can help you with? Sometimes that's enough. So anyway, if you cannot use your verbal skills, God uses your other skills. So do not be too pressured. Let those extroverts do the greetings on Sunday morning, okay? And then you can be available for something else. So you don't need to force yourself beyond your comfort zone. But always use your gifts and grace God has given you, and God will use you differently. That's why we have all of you. We have Lemby doing this and Kay doing something else, and Steve will be doing something different too. But they all come together to build the kingdom of God.
Okay, one last question. Would you have spoken to that Episcopal priest you didn't like if you hadn't been encouraged to?
If I remember where I was at the time, no. I would not have. And I would always have prejudice about, now my prejudice will grow and say, all the Episcopalian priests are such and such. That's the prejudice, right? We sort of generalize because of one experience. But I was there to be trained as a better pastor, and also I'm a high achiever. I wanted to get A+. So when the teacher challenged me, I took up on that challenge. But behind all that was also God's plan for me to grow. There's always invitation from God. An opportunity for us to choose. But we always can choose. God doesn't force you. If I went the other way, I will probably be not doing this today, honestly. That changed me, and I figured out about my own prejudice. But years later, lo and behold, I was teaching this class in, of all places, Veterans Hospital. All the patients there, most of the patients are veterans of Korean War and Vietnam War, 2 Asian countries that went through tragic wars. By then, I was ready to engage whatever these veterans needed to bring. Because I went beyond my own comfort zone, I was able to embrace more veterans. And I am grateful for that opportunity. And that's the challenge for each one of you. What kind of hurdle you want to jump over and go break through the comfort zone. Yes.
It's kind of like lapping around the mountain.
Yes.
We go around the mountain. The children of Israel had to go around and around because at some point, we're his children. There's a place where he wants us to be, and he's going to take us around and around. That's why I say a lot of times, oh, I passed that task. I don't need to go around that lap again. So you got that.
Yes, yes. And she's going round and around the mountain. For me, it's like a spiral. We go deeper and deeper into the unconscious. Yes. Okay.
Thank you so much, Soomee. Thank you so very much. You've given us a lot to think about. Going around the mountain. Wow. And you will be used if you just listen to that inner self. Maybe that's God's voice